Hi, everybody. I'm John Kiriakou, and thanks for taking a couple of minutes to hear about our surveillance and surveillance detection lectures. We've had a couple of questions that I thought were so important that I wanted to get answers out, not just to the people who asked the questions, but to everybody, because these are all real questions, real world questions, and things that people ought to be thinking about when dealing with surveillance and surveillance detection. So, one of the questions asked me if I could cite a real world example where surveillance detection prevented an attack or a crime. One leaps to mind. When I was stationed in Athens, Greece, in the counterterrorism branch at the American Embassy, we had a very wealthy Greek ship owner, a billionaire, an internationally recognized name, call the U.S. ambassador and ask if he could speak to someone who knew about surveillance and surveillance detection. I went to this man's palatial apartment with two of my colleagues. He told us that every day his chauffeur driven limousine would leave the garage under the apartment building where he lived, and he would notice a woman sitting at a bus stop across the street and a man standing about a block away in the distance, just watching him, just watching the limo as it would pull out of the garage. This went on for about 2 weeks, and it happened every single day. So my colleagues and I decided to do some surveillance on the surveillance. And we determined that he was indeed being surveilled. So we told him this was probably a terrorist group. It was probably engaging in pre-operational surveillance. We got pictures of the two people, the man and the woman, and we advised this billionaire to just leave the country. The Greek government at the time was weak on terrorism, and they just weren't going to help him. So he went to his home in Geneva, Switzerland, and just waited things out for a couple of weeks. Well, fast forward 2 years, and the Greek terrorist organization, Revolutionary Organization 17 November, is broken. Its members are arrested. And sure enough, the man and the woman who were conducting surveillance on this ship owner were among those arrested. Longtime terrorists. Their goal in that case was to murder this man. But he was situationally aware enough that he recognized the surveillance and he did something about it. Another question is, how can everyday people build better situational awareness to avoid being targeted? It really is as easy as it sounds. Rule number one, don't play the radio in your car. Instead, don't allow any distractions. And then when you see somebody, let's say walking down the street, walking a dog, say white man, blue jeans, white shirt, walking a dog, Hispanic woman carrying a purse over her right shoulder, just so that if you see them again at some farther point on your route and you hear yourself repeating their description, you know that you're likely under surveillance. This is a very easy kind of trick that the CIA taught us in surveillance and surveillance detection training. The third question, why do so many people miss the warning signs that something's not right? That is such a great question and so important. Really, the answer is that we become comfortable. We become complacent in our everyday routines. And we always think, well, carjackings, you just read about those in the paper. That wouldn't happen to me. A terrorist attack, somebody trying to kill me, that wouldn't happen to me. That only happens in news, or it happens in other countries or other cities. Always go with your gut. Never let yourself become complete. Never let yourself think, oh, what are the chances? The likelihood is that I'm going to be just fine. Just in case, go with gut and protect yourself. The next question we have is, how can confidence and body language influence whether someone becomes a target? That's a tough one. It is true that confidence and body language do influence whether someone becomes a target. It lessens the likelihood that someone is going to be a target. If you exude confidence If you look like you know where you are, you know where you're going, and you have a reason to be there, well, then the person targeting you might think twice. If you look unsure, looking around, checking your phone, looking like you're lost, you're going to make yourself a hit just because you look weak, you look vulnerable. Don't let yourself become that target. Our last question is, can you trust your instincts when something feels off? Oh, listen, always trust your instincts when something feels off. Always. You are the person who knows your gut the best. So go with your gut. And if something just doesn't feel right, as we used to say at the CIA, get off the X or get out of the kill zone. Depart the area as quickly as you can. Trust yourself because you know what's best for you. I just got back to the United States a couple of days ago after teaching a graduate school course at the University of Salamanca in Salamanca, Spain. The course was called The History of Terrorism. I love the subject matter. I just love it. I love telling young people about the history of, let's say, Carlos the Jackal, or how Al Qaeda was founded not in 2001 or even 1997, but in 1986. It was their first meeting. I love talking about communist terrorist groups in places like Greece and Italy and Belgium and France and Germany and the Netherlands. I just love the lessons that can be learned from studying these groups that, in most cases, don't exist anymore. But I'll tell you, the story always comes back to the victims. Always. The victims aren't always senior politicians or governors of central banks or foreign military leaders. The victims often are just people on the street, people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or people who were targeted for terrorist attacks just because they happened to be American. So take the course. You really will learn something, and that something just might save your life someday. Thanks for listening. I'm John Kiriakou. Hope to see you soon.